just lost my train of thought. I suppose you should know something about the very early days of Milwaukee, but not too much. We're not going to dwell on that too much. I mean, before it was settled, it was really just kind of boring. I mean, you had like pristine rivers meandering around with like wild rice and shit growing on the banks and crap. But I mean, stuff like that's only going to get you so far. I mean, things weren't really that funny until like French-Canadian fur enthusiasts showed up and started opening up. I mean, you know, what we would call in history class, like what we would call trading posts, right? But they were just convenience stores, like back in the days when like a pelt was convenient or something. Really, they were just liquor stores. Really, they were just bars. I mean, essentially, they were just bars where you'd have like, you know, a bunch of French guys hanging around, a bunch of Indian guys hanging around, people would be drinking whiskey, and then now and then someone would come in and like order a blanket. You know, it was like, you know, so essentially the French were like the first immigrants to come to this country and open convenience stores. You know, well, really they were just and it led to this like new class of like drunk beggars, like now where you would have like a drunk guy like hanging out on the street like panhandling change, like then you would have guys like drunks hanging out in front of trading posts, like, you know, asking, you know, begging people to like give them furs and stuff, like, hey, give me those furs. You'd have like belligerent guys demanding bells, you know, for some reason bells were something that people wanted back then. But the French guys were essentially just like dirty old men who like came to the frontier so they could have like a lot of Indian wives and stuff, and they would like, you know, take advantage of like desperate families and like convince them to like, you know, sell their daughter for a pair of scissors, and it was just really terrible, you know. And that went on for a while until eventually some territorial judge, some guy named Doty, you know, was able to ban all that. He was able to stop all that. And the scene wasn't that good either if you were like a French chick. I mean, if you were like the daughter of a fur trader guy and you were like trying to meet a husband or something and you wanted him to speak French, I mean, you pretty much just had to like wait around until the next fur enthusiast came to town, you know? I mean, so, you know, that's how things went for a long time. Like you would have 1833, 1834, you had smallpox. 1835, you had a building boom. 1837, you had a panic. You know, it just kept going like that. And this guy, Solomon Juneau, someone you should know about. He's like a big guy around here. They got statues of him and stuff. He came here and was all into the fur scene. But then somehow the fur thing stopped, and then building took off. Like, it went from everyone wanted a fur to everyone wanted a lot. You know, like a piece of ground or something. Now, you're just going to have to take my word for that. It seems like there should have been something in between, but there wasn't, right? And Juneau was somehow the guy who was able to see this coming. And, you know, once the Yankees, which is to say people that spoke English, came from the East, he could see that coming, and he like taught himself English and all that kind of. It's really kind of boring, but actually he was extremely successful. Like, he had a trading post where he had like would make like $8,000 a day, and like he would just like come by and like put all this money like under his top hat, and he'd like walk home with all this money like under his top hat, and then sometimes like a strong wind would come and blow it away, and like, you know, just stuff like that. But like. So that's just something you need to know about. But what I really wanted to tell you about that was, and then where his trading post is like where the Kinko's is now, and like where there was a quicksand hole in 1830. That's where the Dunkin' Donuts is now, and so these kind of things, right? And then there was this Indian guy. I want to tell you about this Indian. There was this Indian chief named Old Flour. But not like, it was like flour, like spelled like, you know, baking flour, you know, like Old Flour. Like, how does someone go about, like, you know, developing a reputation of like having like old flour, you know, or something like that. But I don't know anything else about him except his name. But the guy I really wanted to tell you about was this chief. His name was the Ruptured One. And what he was down on like basically where like 6th and National is now, where they've got some terrible Mexican restaurant now, where they've got like kind of like a mechanical bull, only it's a big jalapeno pepper, you know. That's what they've got there now. But in the 1820s, there was this Indian chief there who was called the Ruptured One. They called him that because his nose was all fucked up, his nose was all broken, and he had like this metal rod, like, you know, a piece from like a gun or something, like in his nose, like holding the cartilage together. And so, I mean, if that isn't romantic, I don't know what is, you know.